As I'm reading a work to analyze or write about for an English class, I tend to create a document where I can paste quotations that I would like to use and go ahead and format them correctly so that then I can put them into the paragraph I construct to discuss the significance of the quotations and to make a good point that will support my thesis. Also, as I put my quotations on the document, I go ahead and make sure to include the work cited. Now, I like to have my works cited citations done where I can copy and paste them into the document. If I don't have them done, I will construct them. But oftentimes you will see even in your course materials that you can copy and paste some of the things that I have provided for you. But you need to make sure that you are including the correct citations depending on which source for Frankenstein you are using. So if you are using the print copy that was available in the bookstore, your works cited will look like this, this first one. If you are using the online version that I gave you, which you could access there, you will use the second one. In addition to the primary source, which is the novel Frankenstein, that you would choose one of these options for, you will have secondary sources when you do your literary analysis. When you create a works cited, the secondary sources go into the works cited alphabetically. So it doesn't matter if a source is primary or secondary, all the sources should be done alphabetically. And I have offered you this source in your course content. And so the first letter is a D for this source. So I'm going to put that in front of the sources that start with S. One thing I'm noticing though is that the spacing is wrong there. I copied and pasted this from the course content. So I need to make sure that I create the line spacing and make it double to fit the rest of the whole essay and the rest of the works cited. I also need to make sure I create a hanging indent. So I go to Special Indent and click Hanging. If you do not have this ribbon, access to these tools, click the little drop box and go to Classic Ribbon, and you can see the line spacing is here and the hanging indent is in this little box here, and you can hit Special and Hanging and OK. All right. Also make sure that you remove extra line spaces between paragraphs. If you're in line spacing on this one, let's remove those. And sometimes it can be a bit cantankerous, so I had to add them and then remove them. If I'm in the other ribbon, the spacing is in the 3-dot thing, so you can remove space there. Another thing that I noticed since I copied and pasted this secondary source into my works cited, I do not have the italics for the container title. So this article titles go in quotation marks. The article is in this website or online news source or journal. Those bigger titles of the bigger thing that the article is in, those go in italics. So make sure that you have that done correctly. Now, let me look at my quotations I have chosen with you. This went to hanging indent when I set that up. I can fix that by saying none. Okay, so I have my parenthetical citations done. I do not have my introductory phrases done. So when I am quoting a source that is the character speaking, I want to say who is speaking and to whom. So Walton, and I want to use present tense verbs for writing about literature. Walton writes to his sister, and this is what he writes. This parenthetical citation is a source, or the source was from the online version of Frankenstein. So when you do that, use the author's last name and what section it is. For example, this is from letter 2, paragraph 2. Also notice that I used square brackets to make small changes. So the word in is missing in the original quotation in both versions. So I quoted, this one is from, actually from the original, or not the original, but our edition from the bookstore. This is from page 11. So it's the same quotation. When you have the print source that you got in the bookstore, you use the last name of the author and the page number. When you use the online source, you don't have page numbers, so I'm asking you to use the section, so letter and paragraph number, or chapter and paragraph number. And I should probably say volume 1, and you should check your volume too. So volume 1, chapter whatever, paragraph whatever. Notice that the period goes not at the end where it is in the actual text, but after the parenthetical citation. All right, so now I have set up a signal phrase. I'm going to color that red so you can see it. I was telling you that I changed a word. I added a word here because it's not in the original text and it's just not the way we speak, and that makes me a little nuts. So I added in so it flows better. I'm also going to change the spelling of this one, even though it is the British spelling. That would be correct, but and I could leave it that way, but if I wanted to change the spelling, I would need to use square brackets to demonstrate that I have made that slight change. I like to put my parenthetical citations in yellow so you can see what I have done there. So can you introduce this quotation in a different way? Yes. I can say Walton laments that he lacks any male companionship or true friendship, which he would consider male, I suppose, even though he seems quite close with his sister. He really wants a mentor. Anyway, so here I have used a full sentence to introduce the quotation, which is an acceptable way to do that, but you have to, instead of using a comma as I have done here, you use a colon before the quotation. So you don't want to use a period here because you want your own words to introduce the quotation. Also, you don't want to use a comma when you have a complete sentence followed by a complete sentence because that creates a comma splice. All right, so that would set up my quotations. These are not double-spaced like they will be in the paragraph. So those are primary source quotations that I think pertain to this part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as this article that I have put in here as a secondary source. I think that helps explains what Walton is experiencing. So I have my parenthetical citation here. Notice that the parenthetical citation should match whatever's first in the works cited for the source. So I have Shelley here, and Shelley here, Shelley here, and Shelley here. The rest of this is the location of the quotation. Okay, so you don't want the whole name of the author, but if you don't have an author's name, as in this article that I'm using as a secondary source, then you use the next thing, the thing that's first in the works cited for the source, no matter what it is. And it's the article title here. So I have this article title in quotation marks because that still is an article title. So it needs its quotation marks to indicate its title and the type of source it is. And then 2 is the page number where I found this quotation. So the article that you can access from the class content in secondary sources for Frankenstein, then you'll see that you see the actual page numbers, or you don't see page numbers, but you can count the pages. It's like 9 pages, and this is on page 2. So 2 is the page number. That is the location where I found this quotation. So this quotation is more than 4 lines, so I know already it's going to need to be a blocked format when I put it in my source. So to do a blocked quotation, you just indent over and you line all this up. Also, for a blocked quotation, you don't use quotation marks around the quotation. The blocking, the indenting over, indicates it's a blocked quotation. Also, the period that normally goes after the parenthetical citation, it stays with the content of the quotation when you use a blocked format. And then you just add your parenthetical citation, stuff in parentheses, and you don't put the period after it because you don't need 2 periods. You need a period either here or here. But for block quotation, it stays with the content of the quotation. For a standard quotation, so fewer than 4 lines of quoted prose, you will use the period after the parenthetical citation. Another thing that is traditional or common or preferred for blocked quotations is to introduce the quotation with a full sentence followed by a colon. So I'll give you an example. So I like to use the title of the container, the website, the big published news journal, whatever it is online, so that I can give some credential to the source. So when I don't have an author's name, or the source is maybe not well known by just the title of the article or the author, I will use the not the publishing company, but the journal title. Like Time Magazine or Newsweek or one of those. This is Medical News Today. So I said, according to Medical News Today, friendship is an important aspect of a healthy life. And then I have a colon, and then I have my blocked quotation. So these are the very first things that I do when I'm about to put together a paragraph that uses primary and secondary sources. The first thing I do is I find my quotations. That helps me put the puzzle of the paragraph together. So I know you feel like you want to start with the main idea sentence and then find the quotations that support your idea, but it's much, much easier to find a quotation from the primary source that intrigues you, that relates to the topic you want to write about, and find something from the secondary source that supports that. Or you can do it the opposite way, which is probably even easier. After you've read your primary source, find the something from a secondary source that talks about that topic that you've been exploring in the primary source, that you may have highlighted a bunch of sections from the primary source that relate to the topic of needs or friendship, and then you will add the content from your secondary source to your paragraph and then find something from the primary source that relates to it. So it's like putting a puzzle together, and I'm going to show you the finished paragraph in the next video.